The silence of space was shattered as the massive alien fleet descended into Earth's orbit. The sky above, once clear and full of stars, was now darkened by the shadows of hundreds of ships, each more imposing than the last. The invasion was no longer a possibility. It was a reality. For years, humanity had lived in peace, unaware of the galactic forces watching them from the far reaches of the universe. Earth had been a small, insignificant speck in the galaxy, one that the advanced civilizations of the stars had deemed unworthy of attention. But all of that changed the moment the first scout ships appeared in the atmosphere. Now, the enemy was here, and they were ready to take what they wanted. The world's leaders scrambled to respond, sending out frantic messages to every corner of the Earth. The military forces mobilized, preparing for a battle that was unlike any other. The people of Earth, however, did not know what was coming. They could only look up at the sky and watch as the alien ships grew larger with every passing moment. Inside the war room of Earth's Central Command, Captain Alex Donovan stood at the front of a large table, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on his shoulders. He wasn't just a commander. He was the last line of defense for his people. Earth's defenses were in disarray, and the world was divided. Some called for peace, urging humanity to submit to the alien demands, while others called for immediate resistance. But Donovan knew one thing: surrender wasn't an option. "We can't just give up," Donovan said, his voice firm, cutting through the chaos of the room. "The fate of humanity rests on our shoulders. We will fight." His words were met with hesitant nods and uncertain glances from the other officers around the table. They were all terrified, but Donovan had learned long ago that fear was something to be faced, not hidden from. The enemy was not invincible, and humanity had the heart to stand against them. The decision was made. Earth would resist. But what did resistance mean? The alien fleet was enormous, far beyond anything Earth's military had ever seen. Their technology was leagues ahead of humanity's. Earth had only recently begun developing interstellar weapons, and they were far from ready to face an invasion of this magnitude. "Captain Donovan," came the voice of General Marcos, the head of Earth's defense forces. "We need to decide how we're going to respond. We can't rely on conventional tactics. They'll crush us with sheer force." Donovan paced the room, his mind racing. The alien ships were equipped with weapons that could obliterate Earth's best defense systems in minutes. They had no choice but to use something unexpected. They had to outsmart the invaders. "There is something," Donovan said slowly, "something we've been working on in secret. It's a weapon, unlike anything they'll be expecting." The room fell silent. The officers leaned forward, their eyes wide with curiosity and skepticism. Earth had always kept its military advancements hidden. But this was different. Donovan knew what they were thinking. Was this weapon enough to turn the tide? "Tell us about it," General Marcos urged, his voice filled with cautious hope. Donovan turned to the large screen in the room, and with a press of a button, a 3D model of a sleek, powerful warship appeared. It was nothing like Earth's previous designs. It looked almost alien in its structure, its design more streamlined, more advanced. This ship, known as Vanguard, was humanity's trump card. "This ship," Donovan began, his voice quieter now, "was built in secret, using the most advanced technology humanity has ever developed. It's faster, stronger, and more versatile than anything the aliens have. It could give us the edge we need. But there's one catch." A heavy pause hung in the air. "The ship hasn't been fully tested. It's never been in a real combat situation. We're flying blind with this one." Donovan watched as the officers exchanged nervous glances. The fate of the entire planet depended on a ship that had never seen battle. It was a gamble, but they had no other choice. "I'll take command of the Vanguard," Donovan said, a fire burning in his eyes. "If there's any chance we have, it's with this ship." General Marcos didn't hesitate. He knew there was no time to waste. "Prepare the Vanguard for launch. And Captain, may the stars be with you." As the Vanguard prepared for launch, Captain Donovan stood on the bridge, watching the massive alien fleet through the viewport. The ships were now in a perfect position to strike, but humanity still had a chance. The Vanguard was a masterpiece of human engineering, with weapons capable of piercing the alien shields and a stealth system that could keep it hidden from the invader's sensors. "All systems are operational, Captain," came the voice of Lieutenant Harris, one of Donovan's most trusted officers. "We're ready to go." Donovan nodded. "Engage." The ship's engines hummed to life, sending the Vanguard surging into space. As they moved closer to the enemy fleet, the tension in the air was palpable. Donovan's mind raced, but he knew that now there was no turning back. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. The first shot rang out, a blast from one of the alien warships that ripped through space with deadly force. The Vanguard maneuvered quickly, narrowly avoiding the attack. The alien fleet was closing in, but humanity was not going down without a fight. "Prepare weapons," Donovan shouted, his voice steady despite the adrenaline rushing through him. "We're not backing down. Fire when ready." The Vanguard fired its first round, an energy blast that pierced the alien shields with surprising precision. The enemy ship shuddered, its shields flickering. For a moment, there was silence. The aliens had felt it. And then the real war began. The battle raged on, but it was clear that Earth's forces were not going to give up. The Vanguard moved with incredible speed, its weapons striking alien ships with deadly accuracy. Donovan's heart raced, but he kept his focus. Every decision, every move counted. They were fighting for survival, and they weren't going to let the galaxy take that from them. As the battle intensified, the aliens began to respond, calling for reinforcements. But it was too late. The fight for Earth had just begun, and humanity had made it clear. They were not going to go down without a fight. The tipping point had arrived, and the real war was only starting. The Vanguard continued to slice through the vacuum of space, its sleek hull glinting under the light of distant stars. The ship's engines hummed with a power that only a few humans had ever truly understood. Inside, Captain Donovan stood in the command center, his eyes locked on the rapidly evolving battlefield. The alien ships, massive and terrifying, were beginning to regroup. Their reinforcements had arrived. Donovan gritted his teeth. The Vanguard had managed to land the first few blows, but now the aliens were adapting quickly. They were no longer underestimating humanity, and that made the stakes even higher. "Status report," Donovan barked, his voice sharp as he turned to Lieutenant Harris. "Captain, the Vanguard systems are holding steady, but we're starting to see signs of strain," Harris replied, her face tense. "The alien ships are stronger than we anticipated, and they've begun to counterattack with advanced weaponry. Shields are holding for now, but we can't keep this up forever." Donovan nodded. He knew the Vanguard was humanity's best hope, but it wasn't invincible. The technology that powered the ship was beyond anything Earth had ever developed, but it had never been tested in a true combat scenario. Every shot that landed against them could be the one that cracked their shields, that sent them plummeting into the unknown. "Keep the shields at maximum," Donovan ordered. "We need to find their weakness, and we need to do it fast." As the ship dodged another energy blast, Donovan's mind raced. He had to keep his cool. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. The aliens had vast numbers, advanced weapons, and the advantage of experience. What humanity had, however, was something far more dangerous: determination. The Vanguard wasn't just humanity's weapon. It was the symbol of their refusal to be dominated, the embodiment of everything they had fought for. Suddenly, an alarm blared, snapping Donovan out of his thoughts. "Captain," Harris shouted, "there's a ship on our tail, and it's firing on all cylinders. We can't shake it." Donovan's eyes darted to the screen. A massive alien cruiser, unlike any of the others, was gaining on them. Its sleek black hull shimmered with an eerie glow as it fired energy blasts that lit up the darkness of space. Each shot was precise, deadly, and unrelenting. "We can't outrun it," Donovan said, clenching his fists. "We have to fight back. Prepare the Vanguard's weapon systems for a counterattack. Lock on and fire." The crews sprang into action, their faces tense with concentration. The Vanguard shifted into a defensive stance, facing the incoming alien cruiser. The ship's advanced targeting systems hummed as they locked onto the cruiser's vulnerable points. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Harris counted down. The Vanguard's main weapon fired a massive beam of energy, so intense that it illuminated the entire battlefield for a split second. The blast tore through the alien ship's shields, creating a shockwave that rippled through space. The cruiser staggered, its weapons fire slowing down as its shield generators flickered. "Direct hit," Harris exclaimed. "Their shields are weakening." Donovan didn't hesitate. "Again, keep the pressure on them." The Vanguard fired again, and this time the shot was even more accurate. The alien cruiser's shields shattered under the force of the blast, and the hull began to crack. The Vanguard's second shot struck deep, and a massive explosion rocked the alien ship, sending debris scattering across space. For a brief moment, there was silence. The Vanguard had made its mark. The alien cruiser was crippled. Donovan allowed himself a breath, but only a brief one. The battle was far from over. The enemy fleet was regrouping, their tactics evolving, and now the true test would begin. They had given the aliens a taste of what humanity was capable of, but they still had to survive the wrath that was coming their way. "Captain," Harris said, breaking the silence, "there's something strange happening. The rest of the enemy fleet is pulling back. They're retreating, but not entirely. They're regrouping in a formation." Donovan leaned forward. "What does that mean?" Harris analyzed the data on the screen, her brow furrowing. "It means they're not done yet. They're preparing something big, something we haven't seen before." Donovan's mind raced. "Do you think they're calling for reinforcements?" "No," Harris said slowly. "This is something different. They're holding back their strongest ships. They may have a new strategy in play." Donovan turned to General Marcos, who had been observing the situation from Earth's command center. "General, we've taken out one of their cruisers, but they're organizing for something bigger. Any word from Earth?" "We're tracking their movements," General Marcos replied. "It looks like they're positioning their ships for a final assault. We can't rely on the Vanguard alone. We'll need backup." "We'll need more than backup," Donovan muttered. "We need to take out their command ship. If we don't destroy their flagship, they'll just keep coming." A heavy silence settled over the bridge of the Vanguard. The decision was clear. They had to go after the heart of the alien fleet, but the risks were enormous. The flagship was heavily guarded, and if they failed, the Vanguard would be sitting in the heart of the enemy fleet with no escape. "Prepare the ship for a direct assault on the flagship," Donovan ordered. "This is our best shot. We're taking the fight to them." The crew's faces were resolute, but fear lingered in their eyes. They all knew this mission could be their last, but humanity had already made its stand. There was no turning back. As the Vanguard powered toward the enemy flagship, the battle was about to reach its boiling point. They were no longer fighting to defend their home. Now, they were fighting to end the war. The real test was just beginning. The Vanguard hurtled through space, its engines roaring as it closed in on the heart of the alien fleet. Captain Donovan stood at the helm, his eyes narrowed in concentration as he observed the massive alien flagship on the view screen. It was unlike anything they had seen before, a dark, gleaming behemoth that seemed to pulse with energy. This was the ship that controlled the entire invasion force. If they could destroy it, they could end this war. "Captain, we're nearing the flagship," Lieutenant Harris said, her voice tight with both anticipation and anxiety. "The enemy has already begun to mobilize their defenses. They're locking onto us." Donovan's gaze didn't waver. "Steady. We need to get through their defenses and take out their command center. Once we're in range, we make the first strike." "Understood, sir," Harris replied, her fingers flying over the console, guiding the ship toward the alien flagship's massive hull. The Vanguard systems hummed in sync with the captain's command. The ship's cloaking system was activated, causing the massive vessel to blend into the darkness of space, becoming nearly invisible to the alien sensors. But even the best technology couldn't mask their presence entirely. They were now deep within the enemy's line of fire, and the clock was ticking. Donovan took a deep breath, his thoughts clear despite the tension. This was the moment. Everything they had done, everything they had fought for, had led them to this single point in time. The fate of Earth, of humanity, rested in their hands. "Captain," Harris said, her voice low, "the enemy flagship is deploying its defenses. They're launching drones and deploying energy barriers. We're going to have to break through all of that to reach the command center." "I know," Donovan replied, his voice steady. "We'll fight through it. We've faced worse before." The Vanguard's weapons systems powered up, its energy beams locking onto the enemy drones that began to swarm around them. The alien ships were relentless, moving faster than anything humanity had faced before. The drones were equipped with advanced weaponry, blades of energy that sliced through space at terrifying speeds. Firing on drones, Lieutenant Harris called out, her hands moving over the controls with precision. The Vanguard's cannons fired, sending beams of energy hurtling into the oncoming enemy drones. Each shot found its mark, taking out multiple drones in one go. But for every drone they destroyed, two more appeared in their place. Donovan's eyes scanned the battlefield. The enemy flagship's massive turrets began to glow with energy, preparing to fire. The Vanguard was taking hits now, the ship's hull vibrating under the pressure. The energy shields held, but the strain was beginning to show. They couldn't sustain this much longer. "Lieutenant, are we close enough to target the flagship's weak points?" Donovan asked. "We're almost there, sir," Harris replied, gritting her teeth. "We're within range to hit their engines and weapon systems, but we have to get past these drones and their energy barriers first." A massive explosion rocked the Vanguard's rear as one of the alien drones exploded near their shields. The ship rocked violently, sending several crew members stumbling to the floor. "Damage report," Donovan shouted, gripping the edge of the command table. "We've lost auxiliary power to the aft section," Harris reported, her voice strained. "We're still operational, but it's getting worse. If we don't act now, we're going to lose the Vanguard." Donovan's eyes burned with determination. He couldn't let that happen. Not now. Not when they were so close. Initiating evasive maneuvers, he ordered. "Lieutenant, I need you to target their engines. We disable them. We cripple their fleet." "Understood," Harris replied, her hands flying over the console. The Vanguard suddenly swerved, avoiding another incoming blast from the alien flagship's weapon systems. The ship's engines roared as it took a sharp turn, racing toward the heart of the enemy's defenses. The drones swarmed once more, but the Vanguard's advanced maneuverability allowed it to dodge and weave between them, firing back with deadly accuracy. "Now," Donovan shouted, "take out their engines." The Vanguard's main weapon fired once again, its energy beam cutting through the darkness of space. The beam struck the alien flagship's engines, causing them to flare up in a brilliant explosion. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The light from the explosion illuminated the battlefield, showing the chaos of battle. A sea of fire and twisted metal as drones and alien ships collided in the wake of the destruction. The flagship staggered, its engines now crippled, and its once imposing shields flickered. Donovan could feel a shift in the air. The aliens were reeling. "Direct hit on their engines," Harris exclaimed. "We've crippled them, Captain." Donovan didn't allow himself a moment of celebration. The fight wasn't over yet. The alien forces were still in full motion, and now that the flagship had lost its engines, it was vulnerable. But they still had to act fast. "All weapons on the flagship's command center," Donovan ordered. "We hit them now, before they can regroup." The Vanguard fired again, the energy beam streaking toward the exposed command center of the alien flagship. This was the core of their operation. If they could destroy it, the entire alien fleet would be left without direction. The beam struck, and the flagship shuddered violently. For a moment, the entire ship seemed to tremble under the force of the impact. Then, as if in slow motion, the command center erupted in a burst of light. The explosion sent shockwaves across the battlefield, taking out several nearby alien ships in the process. The alien fleet faltered. Donovan could see the reaction in the remaining ships. They were confused, disorganized. Without their flagship's guidance, they were no longer a unified force. The aliens had lost their nerve. "We did it," Harris whispered, disbelief in her voice. "We've crippled their fleet." But Donovan wasn't celebrating. The battle wasn't won yet. "We need to finish this," he said, his voice hard. "We can't let them regroup. Push forward, Lieutenant. Target their remaining command ships." The remaining alien ships hesitated, their coordination falling apart without the flagship. The Vanguard moved in quickly, firing relentlessly, picking off the remaining enemies with brutal efficiency. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. Humanity had struck a blow the aliens never saw coming. The heart of the enemy fleet had been pierced, and the war had shifted in humanity's favor. The Vanguard cruised through the debris field, its once pristine hull now battered and scarred from the fierce battle with the alien fleet. Captain Donovan stood tall, his hands clasped behind his back, as he stared at the shattered remains of the alien flagship, now drifting helplessly in the vastness of space. The command center had been destroyed, and its engines were reduced to glowing ruins, but the battle was far from over. "Captain," Harris's voice broke through his thoughts. "The remaining alien ships are disorganized, but they're still heavily armed. We need to finish them off before they regroup." Donovan turned to face the crew, his expression hardening. They had dealt a heavy blow, but the war was still raging. There were still dozens of alien ships in the area, and though they were weaker, they could still fight back, and humanity couldn't afford to be caught off guard again. "We will finish this today," Donovan said firmly. "No more hesitating. We fight until they are all gone." "Yes, Captain," Harris responded, her fingers flying over the console as she began targeting the remaining alien ships. The battlefield was chaotic, filled with the wreckage of destroyed drones, alien warships, and the remnants of the flagship. The enemy was reeling from the loss of their command center, but they were still a formidable force, and it was only a matter of time before they tried to rally. "Captain, I'm detecting a new formation," Lieutenant Harris reported. "The enemy fleet is trying to regroup. They're focusing their remaining forces into a single line, likely to make one final push." "Typical," Donovan muttered. "They won't give up without a fight. But we've got them on the ropes." The Vanguard sped toward the enemy fleet's regrouped forces, its cannons charged and ready. The remaining alien ships, though fewer in number, still packed a powerful punch. As they gathered, they formed a defensive line, each ship facing outward ready to retaliate. "All weapons locked," Harris called out. "We can hit them hard if we're quick. But if they hit us first." "We won't let that happen," Donovan interrupted, his voice unwavering. "We take them down before they get a chance to strike." The Vanguard's massive engines roared as it surged forward, the ship tearing through the battlefield at full speed. The alien ships began firing as they detected the Vanguard's movement, energy blasts lighting up the dark expanse of space. The Vanguard's shields flared brightly as the blasts collided with the ship, but the crew was ready. They had prepared for this moment. "Shields holding," Harris reported, "but we can't take many more hits like that." Donovan's eyes narrowed as the Vanguard barreled toward the alien formation. "We'll make sure there's nothing left of them." "Incoming drone swarm," Lieutenant Harris shouted, her voice tight. "We're being surrounded." A swarm of alien drones, each one a tiny but deadly threat, descended upon the Vanguard like a cloud of locusts. These drones were faster, more nimble than the larger ships, and their weapons were more precise. The crew of the Vanguard could barely keep up with their movements as the drones closed in, their energy blades flashing as they slashed through space. "Initiate evasive maneuvers," Donovan barked. "All weapons on the drones. Do not let them breach our shields." The Vanguard swerved sharply, spinning to avoid the incoming onslaught. Its weapons fired in rapid succession, beams of energy cutting through the drones with deadly accuracy. But there were too many, and for every drone they destroyed, more appeared. "Shields at 70%, Harris reported, her voice tinged with frustration. "We need to get rid of these drones fast." "Keep firing," Donovan ordered, his voice calm under pressure. He could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but he couldn't afford to show any weakness now. The crew looked to him for leadership. "We'll break through. Stay focused." The Vanguard rocked violently as another explosion rattled the ship, the energy of the blast reverberating through the entire hull. The drones were relentless, but humanity's resolve was even stronger. Just as it seemed like the drones might overwhelm them, a voice echoed over the comms. It was General Marcos from Earth's command center. "Donovan, we've got your back," Marcos said. "We've sent reinforcements. A fleet of human warships is en route. They'll be there in 5 minutes." "Thank God," Donovan muttered under his breath, a flicker of relief crossing his face. The reinforcements were the support they so desperately needed. They could hold on a little longer. "Hold on, people," Donovan shouted to his crew. "We're almost through this. Keep pushing forward." The reinforcements arrived just as the Vanguard shields began to flicker dangerously low. The human warships, though fewer in number, arrived with a barrage of firepower that hit the alien drones and ships with precision. The Vanguard's crew was relieved, but there was no time to rest. The final phase of the battle was approaching. "Captain, we're receiving strange readings from the alien flagship wreckage," Harris reported, her voice laced with concern. "It looks like some kind of transmission." Donovan's brow furrowed. "Transmission? From the wreckage? That can't be right." "We don't know what it is," Harris continued, "but it's a signal, and it's coming from deep within the flagship's remains." "Are they calling for reinforcements?" Donovan asked, his voice low. "We can't let them regroup." "We'll have to investigate, Captain," Harris said. "It could be their last-ditch effort." Donovan nodded, making a decision in an instant. "Lieutenant, prepare a team. We're going to the wreckage. We need to find out what's happening and destroy whatever it is before it's too late." As the Vanguard drew closer to the wreckage, the alien ships faltered in their attack. Humanity had gained the upper hand, but there were still mysteries lurking in the heart of the enemy's forces. Donovan couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens had something planned, something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The final battle was not yet over, and in the dark silence of space, the true threat was still waiting. The wreckage of the alien flagship loomed before the Vanguard, a dark and twisted mess of metal and broken structures. Yet within that chaos, a faint pulse of light flickered intermittently, a signal buried deep within the ruins. Donovan stood on the command deck, his expression grim, as he watched the wreckage through the viewing window. He couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens had something far more dangerous planned, something that could change the course of the war. "Captain, we've arrived at the wreckage," Harris reported, her voice tense. "The signal is definitely coming from inside the remains of the flagship. It's faint, but it's there." Donovan nodded, his hands clasped behind his back. "Prepare a team. We need to find out what's inside that wreckage. If the aliens have another weapon hidden there, we can't afford to let it reach the rest of their fleet." "We're on it, Captain," Harris replied, turning toward her crew. The Vanguard slowly crept closer to the wreckage, its thrusters barely making a sound as it approached the twisted remains of the flagship. The ship had been completely disabled, its massive form now just an empty shell drifting in space. Yet deep within its center, something was alive. The signal was unmistakable. The aliens hadn't given up. They had a plan, and Donovan was determined to uncover it before it was too late. "Lieutenant, "I want a full scan of that wreckage," Donovan said, his voice steely. "I don't trust this. There's something they're not telling us." The crew worked quickly, scanning the wreckage for any signs of life or hidden technology. The Vanguard sensors picked up strange readings, something cloaked within the debris. It wasn't just a transmission. There was energy in that wreckage, an unfamiliar energy signature. "We've found it," Harris said, her voice quiet with disbelief. "There's a hidden compartment deep inside the flagship. It's shielding the signal. Whatever it is, it's being protected by something we can't detect fully with our scanners." "Let's not waste any more time," Donovan said sharply. "We're going in. Prepare a boarding party. We need to investigate this before the rest of the fleet realizes what's going on." Within minutes, a team of soldiers suited in heavy space gear prepared to board the wreckage. Captain Donovan led the team, his resolve as hard as ever. There was no telling what they would find inside, but it was better to deal with it now than face another surprise later. With the sound of locking helmets and weapons being readied, they boarded their shuttles and headed toward the alien wreckage. The shuttle's engines hummed softly as it docked with the twisted remains of the alien ship. The eerie silence outside was broken only by the creaking of metal as they secured their position. The soldiers were ready. Donovan nodded to Harris as she initiated the door hatch. "Stay sharp, everyone," Donovan said, his voice low but commanding. "We don't know what we're walking into." The door opened with a hiss, and the team stepped into the remains of the alien flagship. It was like entering the hollowed-out skeleton of a massive creature. The interior was a labyrinth of broken corridors, alien technology scattered all over the place. The strange, alien architecture loomed above them, casting shadows in the dim light of their helmets' flashlights. "Proceed with caution," Donovan ordered. "Stay in formation. Harris, track that signal." Harris adjusted her handheld scanner, her eyes narrowing as she moved through the wreckage. The signal was stronger now, and the team followed her through the maze of debris. The air was stale, the silence oppressive, and the further they ventured into the heart of the wreckage, the more the atmosphere felt like something was watching them. "I don't like this," one of the soldiers muttered under his breath, his voice tense. "It feels like they're still here." "Keep your focus," Donovan snapped. "We don't know what we're up against yet." Finally, they reached a chamber at the center of the wreckage, a large, circular room covered in strange symbols. At the center of the room was a dark, glowing object. It was suspended in the air, an alien device of some sort, crackling with strange energy. It pulsed rhythmically, as though it was alive. Harris's scanner beeped. "Captain, this is it. This is the source of the signal. I think it's some kind of communication device." Donovan approached cautiously, his eyes narrowing as he examined the device. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The alien tech was far beyond their understanding. The device was humming with power, and though it seemed dormant, there was an underlying sense of urgency about it. "Is it active?" Donovan asked, his tone low. "It looks dormant, but I'm not sure," Harris replied, scanning it further. "There's a faint power signature, like it's waiting to activate." Donovan turned to the rest of the team. "Keep your weapons ready. We don't know what will happen if this thing powers up." Just as he said that, the device's humming grew louder. The faint energy signature started to grow stronger, and the glowing object began to pulse more rapidly. The room filled with a strange, vibrating sound as the device activated fully. "Captain, it's powering up," Harris shouted. "Something's coming through. It's—" Before she could finish, the walls of the room began to tremble. The alien symbols on the walls started to glow, and a low, ominous voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in a language none of them could understand. "Get back," Donovan ordered, his voice sharp as he reached for his weapon. But it was too late. The chamber was bathed in a blinding light as a massive force surged through the room. The soldiers staggered back, their hands up to shield their eyes from the brightness. The air crackled with energy as the walls began to collapse in on themselves. Something was emerging from the heart of the device. "We've got to get out of here," Harris screamed, but Donovan's mind raced. He knew they couldn't leave yet. "Get a shot off," Donovan shouted. "Take it out now, before whatever this is can fully manifest." The soldiers opened fire on the device, their weapons unleashing a hail of bullets and energy blasts. But the shots had no effect. The device only pulsed more intensely, and the strange voice grew louder. Then, a figure appeared in the center of the light, a shadowy, monstrous being, its form shifting and writhing, as if it was made of pure energy. "Captain, it's not human," one of the soldiers gasped, his voice filled with terror. The creature's eyes locked onto Donovan's, and for a split second, he felt a cold, penetrating gaze that seemed to pierce his very soul. Then, the creature spoke. "Humanity will kneel before the true power of the universe." Donovan's heart raced. He had never felt such fear. This was something they had never faced before, something far worse than the alien fleet. But there was no time to dwell on it. The creature lunged forward. The creature's form shifted violently, its body rippling like liquid darkness as it advanced toward the crew. It moved with impossible speed, its limbs stretching unnaturally, and its glowing empty eyes seemed to pierce into the very fabric of reality itself. The air in the chamber felt thicker, heavier, as if the atmosphere itself was being sucked into the presence of this being. "Fall back! Fall back!" Donovan roared, his heart pounding in his chest. He grabbed Harris by the arm and yanked her toward the exit. The soldiers were already retreating, but it was clear that the creature's presence was making the very air seem suffocating. Their footsteps echoed against the metal floor as they raced for the door, but they weren't fast enough. A low growl reverberated through the room as the creature lunged forward. Its form shimmered, splitting into multiple tendrils of shadow. With a flash of unnatural speed, one of the tendrils shot out, wrapping around one of the soldiers and pulling him into the air. His scream was cut off as his body began to convulse, energy crackling around him before he went limp. "Jim," one of the soldiers shouted, reaching for his comrade. But it was too late. "Keep moving," Donovan barked. His mind raced with thoughts of the creature's power. It was unlike anything they had ever faced. This wasn't just an alien. It was something ancient, something beyond their understanding. The crew scrambled toward the exit, but the creature was everywhere. Its form twisted and morphed with every step it took, moving faster than anything they could comprehend. Each time they thought they were clear, a tendril would shoot from the darkness, smashing through walls or dragging people into the shadows. As they reached the outer corridor, Donovan's heart sank. The way ahead was blocked. Alien debris had fallen, forming a barricade, and there was no way to get past it. "Harris, get the doors open," Donovan shouted, his voice urgent. She rushed to the control panel, her hands flying over the buttons, but the power was fluctuating. The systems were failing in response to the creature's overwhelming presence. The walls trembled, and the lights flickered as if the ship itself was beginning to collapse under the weight of the creature's power. "Come on," Harris shouted, slamming her fist against the panel in frustration. "Come on. Don't let it get us," Donovan ordered, his voice rising with panic. He fired a quick blast at the advancing shadow tendrils, but it did nothing. The creature was impervious to their weapons. Then, just as the creature's form surged toward them again, the doors to the outer hallway slid open with a sudden, grinding motion. "Move! Move!" Donovan shouted, pushing Harris through the door as the rest of the crew followed, barely avoiding another lash of shadowy tendrils. They ran through the corridor, but the creature was still pursuing them. It was faster now, its tendrils stretching across the walls, cutting off their escape. The air was thick with tension, the sound of their running footsteps echoing in the dark, oppressive silence of the alien ship. The creature's presence loomed just behind them, an ever-present threat, and Donovan could hear its voice growing louder in his mind. "Humanity will be destroyed." They reached the shuttle bay. but the door to the launch area was sealed shut. Harris slammed her hands against the control panel in desperation, her face flushed with fear. Come on, she cried. It's locked down. It won't open. Donovan turned to the rest of the crew, his mind whirling. They were running out of time. The creature was almost upon them, and without an escape, they were finished. Get back. I'll hold it off, Donovan shouted. He didn't know how much longer he could last, but they had no choice. He couldn't let them die here. But before he could step forward, the voice of General Marcos crackled through the comms. Donovan, we've got your location. We're sending reinforcements now. Donovan's heart leaped, but his relief was short-lived as the ship's internal lights blinked red. The Vanguard was shaking violently, and the walls groaned in protest as the alien creature's power surged. General, you need to hurry, Donovan urged, his voice strained. This thing is more powerful than we thought. It's ripping through the ship. We're on our way, Donovan. Hang tight. Donovan glanced at his team, determination burning in his eyes. We can't wait for reinforcements. We need to move now. He rushed to the shuttle's control panel and began overriding the lockdown systems. The ship groaned again, and a high-pitched hum filled the air as the creature's presence intensified. They couldn't stay here much longer. Just as the shuttle bay door opened, a terrible shriek pierced the air, followed by an explosive surge of energy. The creature's form appeared in the doorway, a monstrous tendril reaching out, ready to tear them apart. The shuttle door opened fully just in time for Donovan and his crew to dive inside. He slammed the door shut, sealing them inside. Go, 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 he shouted as Harris powered up the shuttle's engines. The shuttle lurched forward, but as they moved, the creature's voice echoed in their minds once again. Escape is futile. You cannot outrun the darkness of the universe. The shuttle shot into space, dodging debris as it fled from the wreckage of the alien ship. The Vanguard and the remaining fleet were waiting for them at a safe distance, their guns ready to fire at any alien pursuers. Get us out of here, Harris, Donovan said, his voice tight. The shuttle rocketed into open space, away from the alien ship's wreckage. As they moved farther, the monstrous presence began to fade, the creature's voice silenced for the moment. But Donovan knew this wasn't the end. It had only just begun. Everyone get to the Vanguard, Donovan ordered. We need to regroup and prepare for what's coming. This creature, whatever it is, it's not done with us. And neither is this war. The cold expanse of space stretched endlessly before the shuttle as it flew toward the Vanguard. The light from distant stars barely cut through the dark, infinite void, and the eerie silence that surrounded the vessel only deepened the crew's unease. Inside, however, the tension was palpable. Every member of the team knew that what they had just escaped was far from the end. The creature, the shadowy entity they had barely outrun, was still out there. And it was only a matter of time before it struck again. Captain Donovan stood at the front of the shuttle, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The blackness of space seemed to draw him in, but his thoughts were elsewhere, on the wreckage they had just left, on the creature that now hunted them. We can't keep running forever, Donovan muttered to himself. The crew could feel the weight of his words. Captain, Harris said from behind him, her voice steady, but filled with concern. We've made it out, but we're not safe yet. That thing won't stop until it finds us. I know, Donovan replied, his mind racing. But we have to figure out a way to fight back. If we don't, we're doomed. The shuttle's engines hummed beneath them as it drew closer to the Vanguard. Donovan's heart quickened with every passing second. The fleet was waiting for them, perhaps humanity's last line of defense against this otherworldly terror. But the creature, whatever it was, had already proven it could cut through their ranks with terrifying ease. Do we have any updates from the fleet? Donovan asked, turning to Harris. We're still waiting for confirmation, Harris replied, her fingers flying over the console. But the enemy ships are massing. I'm sure they're aware of what happened. They'll be coming for us soon. We don't have much time, Donovan said, a new sense of urgency entering his voice. Once we dock, I want all available firepower ready. We need to put everything we've got into stopping this thing before it destroys us. The shuttle shook as it entered the Vanguard's docking bay. The moment the ship's systems connected with the Vanguard, the crew wasted no time. They rushed to their positions, weapons in hand, ready to face whatever was coming next. The Vanguard's command deck was a whirlwind of activity as the entire crew prepared for a fight that might be their last. "Captain, we've got incoming ships," Lieutenant Harris reported, her eyes scanning the tactical display. "Multiple alien vessels, heading straight for us. It looks like they've gotten their bearings after we left the wreckage." Donovan's face hardened. "They're coming for us. They must have realized what we're dealing with." The entire crew tensed at the thought of an all-out assault. They knew that the alien fleet was formidable, but with the mysterious creature still lurking out there, they now faced an even greater challenge. "We need to make this fight count," Donovan said. He turned to his crew, and the officers gathered around the table. "Prepare for the worst, everyone. We're not just defending this ship, we're fighting for humanity's future." The crew nodded, their expressions grim but resolute. They had seen horrors before, but nothing like this. The threat was no longer just about fighting for territory or power. It was about survival. The Vanguard's cannons hummed to life as the alien ships drew nearer, their dark forms appearing in the view screen. The creature's presence lingered in the back of Donovan's mind, but he knew that he had to focus. They couldn't afford to be distracted now. If they lost this fight, humanity would fall, and the galaxy would be lost. "Fire when ready," Donovan commanded. The first volley of fire from the Vanguard's cannons shattered the silence of space. Energy blasts flew toward the alien ships, striking with pinpoint accuracy. But the aliens weren't caught off guard. Their ships returned fire, their weapons flashing with deadly precision. The Vanguard rocked with the impact, but its shields held. "Shields holding steady," Harris called out. "But they're getting stronger with each attack." Donovan gritted his teeth. "We need to push them back. Initiate evasive maneuvers. Full power to engines." The Vanguard darted forward, narrowly dodging incoming blasts from the alien fleet. The battle was fierce, and the ship's crew fought valiantly, their weapons roaring in defiance. But amid the chaos of the battle, Donovan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. There was a palpable sense of dread in the air. Something far more dangerous than the alien ships was coming. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life. It was a voice Donovan had hoped to never hear again. "Humanity cannot escape its fate." The voice was cold, ancient, just like the creature they had encountered on the alien flagship. Donovan's heart skipped a beat. He knew what that meant. The creature was coming. "Brace yourselves," Donovan shouted to his crew. "It's here." The walls of the Vanguard shook violently as the creature manifested once more, its monstrous form emerging from the shadows. This time, it wasn't just one entity. It was an army of dark tendrils, shifting and twisting in space, its form breaking apart and reassembling in a chaotic dance of pure power. "Open fire," Donovan ordered. "All weapons, full power." The crew poured everything they had into the creature, but it was no use. Each blast seemed to pass right through it, the dark energy simply absorbing the attacks without any effect. The creature's tendrils shot out, crashing into the Vanguard, tearing through its hull and sending sparks flying. The ship groaned in protest, but its crew continued to fight back, determined not to give in. "This isn't working," Harris shouted. "We can't stop it." Donovan clenched his fists. "There has to be a way. There has to be." Then an idea struck him, a dangerous, desperate idea. He knew the Vanguard's core could release a massive burst of energy, but doing so would risk the entire ship. It was a last-ditch option, but it was their only hope. "We'll make it work," Donovan said, determination in his voice. Harris, prep the core for emergency discharge. We're going to overload the system and take that thing out. The crew hesitated for a moment, the gravity of Donovan's words sinking in. But they knew what had to be done. With grim resolve, they began preparations, working together as the Vanguard's core hummed to life. The creature was growing stronger, and the ship's systems were failing. But they were almost ready. "On my mark," Donovan said, his voice tight with anticipation. 3, 2, 1, now. With a final burst of energy, the Vanguard's core unleashed an enormous wave of power. The entire ship shook violently as the surge of energy tore through the alien creature. It screamed, an unearthly wail that shook the very fabric of space. But it wasn't enough. The creature was obliterated in a burst of light. But as the light faded, Donovan knew that this was only the beginning. The battle for humanity's survival had just started, and the true war was only now beginning.